We are live. Hello, humans. Dr. Sarah Happening here with Performances Happening. And today I'm so excited. We are kicking off our pre-conference interview speaker series for the Art and Science of Health Promotion, which is going down at the end of March here in Colorado Springs at the Broadmoor. And we are kicking it off today with Patty de Vries. I'm going to read a little bit here. She is a Chief Experience Officer at Living Well USA. Patty is a longtime leader in neuroscience-based leadership, neuroliteracy, and energy management with deep experience supporting leaders through stress, burnout, and high-pressure environments. She'll be speaking at the conference on neuroscience-based skills for high-performing leaders, and we're going to dive into how understanding the brain can help leaders lead with more clarity, calm, and confidence. If you're interested in joining us this March, you can learn more and register at, and I'm going to also have this in the description, wellnessalliance.org/health promotion. And the speaker lineup this year is absolutely phenomenal. And it's not one of those like huge conferences where everything's going on at the same time and you don't get to like be present, because I know a lot of conferences are like that. So I am super excited. If you don't have your ticket, go get your ticket. And it's going to be my first time at the Broadmoor. So I'm very excited about that as well. Cool. Okay, Patty, thank you so much for being here. I have your bio as well, so I'm going to read it. I was stalking Patty on the interwebs this morning, putting these questions together, and I'm super impressed, and we have a lot of overlap that we can dig into. And then I have questions that I prepared for her. So quickly, I'm reading her bio. Okay, as a Chief Experience Officer at Living Well USA, Patty is a pioneer in integrating neuroscience, positive psychology, and nature-based practices to elevate leadership and well-being. A former Stanford University wellness leader, she developed engaging programs supporting thousands of faculty, clinicians, and staff. Earlier in her career, she founded Time Out Services, Inc., a nationally recognized wellness company serving clients including Google, Yahoo, Cisco, and TiVo. Patty is the author of The Soft Side of Success and Living Well Within, Awakening Your Energy, Healing Your Life, and Remembering Who You Are. She is a contributing author on the topics of physician well-being and neuroliteracy. During her time with the Stanford Medicine Physician Wellness Team, she co-created the original Stanford Medicine model of professional fulfillment, now used by organizations across the country. A 9-time NCAA All-American and 1988 Olympic trials competitor in track and field, Patty holds a BA degree in psychology from Stanford and a master's degree in health promotion management. Today, she leads transformational leadership programs at her 4.5-acre retreat center in the mountains, overlooking the forest all the way in Monterey Bay in California. She and her husband have transformed their land into a place for growth, empowering individuals and organizations to thrive from the inside out. Yes. So impressive.
Thank you.
That's amazing. So I found out 12 days before the Olympics I wasn't going. I was ranked 30th in the world. They were supposed to take 34 females, and 12 days before the Beijing Olympics, I found out that they were taking 29. So that was the kick in the back, in the butt. And then also, one of my life goals is to have a wellness retreat center. So I'm just so excited to pick your brain on some of that stuff. Obviously, we're going to stay conference themed. We're going to go off a little, but this is great that I have you locked in here and I can ask you also all these questions. Okay, so you've been working at the intersection of neuroscience, leadership, and well-being for decades now. What first pulled you into the brain side of performance versus just do the healthy thing?
That's a really good question. I think it's been many years of a broadening of awareness to how powerful our brains are. I remember being, 12, somewhere in the range of 12 to 13, 14 years old, where I would sit in my last class of the day, and so often I would convince myself I was too sick to go to practice. And here I was already, in 8th and 9th grade being recruited to some top universities that back in the 80s didn't understand that I was not ready for college yet. I was in 8th and 9th grade, but I would convince myself that I was too sick. I remember times having somebody, feel my forehead. I was convinced I had a temperature, and I would, in that moment when they'd be like, "You're fine. Again, you're fine. You can go to practice," that I would say, okay, if a friend called and asked me to take a road trip someplace and I got excited, would I be fine? And in that moment, I knew it was something weighing me down. I didn't understand what it was, but I knew that if I thought about something else, I would immediately feel better. And that was back in Grand Forks, North Dakota, preparing for a practice. And I had oftentimes that experience where I could change what I thought about something and it would shift my entire body chemistry and how I felt about going forward. And so it was that. And then I thought about it for a lot of years. And then I remember seeing at one of the HERO conferences, the Health Enhancement Research Organization, about 15 years ago, the above and below the line, conscious.is, and understanding where we are. Are we in a place where we're feeding ourselves positive energy and positive words and positive information, or are we allowing ourselves to stay stuck in negativity and in judgment? And I still remember in college, it was my freshman year, and some things had gone wrong and some people had disappointed me and done some things that, to the small town girl in North Dakota, I thought were just not very nice. And I remember going to my coach at the time, and he simply said, "No one can make you upset without your permission." And he was so calm about it. And I was so angry that he didn't understand. But it stuck with me. And it stuck with me all these years. And now with the resurgence of neuroscience and diving into that and the understanding of our brains, I believe it's the most powerful thing we can do for ourselves is to understand our operating system.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree. And I'm talking a lot online or to clients and whatnot, and trying to kind of burn into their brain that our brains don't want us to have success. Our brains just want to keep us safe and alive. And all they're doing is repeating the way that you thought, the things that you've had. Like 95% of, we think we're in control of our brain, but it's all on autopilot. And it's not bringing you closer towards your goals unless you decide to change it, right? Because that's uncomfortable, and our brains don't want to be uncomfortable. They don't want success for us. They just want alive. And whether that's repeating behaviors that have either been helpful or harmful in the past, they've kept you alive. So your brain just like, it's going to be on autopilot unless you're like, "Hey, hello brain, here we are. Like, let's tell it what to think." And then we can have more strategies, but it's just going to go on its own. It's like a rogue little toddler sometimes, So I love that. And I love that's awesome that you discovered that so early, like still in college. I had a similar experience. I studied sports and exercise psychology. And like when you're an athlete and you kind of get into that and you're like, oh, how you actually think affects how you perform. And if you can control how you think, you're going to perform better. Like, I thought I had the magic wand. I was like, woo, look at me doing sports psychology on myself. But I think it's so awesome. And I think it's great that you discovered that so early. And then that's such a driving force of how to, help yourself and others moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Your session focuses on neuroplasticity and self-regulation. Mm-hmm. So I have a follow-up question for this, but can you explain to the people who maybe aren't so familiar with the term, what is neuroplasticity?
Neuroplasticity is our brain's ability to rewire itself. And we can be the observer of our thoughts instead of the ship just going with the waves. We can actually be at the helm, understanding the waves coming, understanding the waves going, understanding how to ride those waves, and understand which of those waves can take us to where we want to go, and which of those waves are protecting us for some other reason. And so our brains being, plastic means that we can, if we don't like a behavior, we can back it up, start to understand what beliefs have maybe created the pattern that we're in, what understanding, what conditioning maybe that we had as a child, what behaviors protected us as a child, and then understand where our attention is now. What are we, where is our attention? Where is our fears? Where can we start to think about our own personal operating system, which mine is going to be different. We're all going to have a different operating system, things that will motivate us, things that will deplete our energy. And as we get to know ourselves and calmly, without judgment, start to look at those things that we've been conditioned to do without thinking, everything from, how we wake up in the morning and what we eat in our first meal, to how we wrap up the day's activities and make ourselves a nice place to rest our bodies. How are we thinking about our bodies? For many of us who grew up in the 80s and 90s, there's still this hyper focus on our body image and how we show up and how our clothes fit and do we look as good as someone else? It's that constant comparison. And to understand that comparison does not serve us. That judgment in any way, shape, or form depletes our energy. And then starting to understand that we can, as the observer, start to observe those behaviors, those belief systems, those places where our attention has been taken before, and start to have more agency over that.
I love that. And I heard it's important for the folks listening, you said it twice, without judgment. Without judgment, right? Because, that's one of the definitions of mindfulness too, but our brains hear absolutely everything we tell them. Mm-hmm. So be careful what you're telling yourself. And my cue that I always tell my humans is like, would you ever utter those words out loud to another human being? If not, please don't speak to yourself like that. I would say, let's speak to ourselves like our own best friend. Because even if you're just thinking the thoughts, your brain is hearing everything that you're saying, and then it will look for evidence to make those things true. Another thing that I think is important is neuroplasticity is available in your brain at any age, right? Yeah. So many, like, oh, dog, can't teach them new tricks, or humans. Like, I have taught an 88-year-old how to balance on his hands and his knees on a ball in the gym. And I'm like, anytime anyone gives me an excuse, and I was like, nope, here's a picture. Look at Lee, look what he's doing. So I think that's really important to know that regardless of age, you are never too old to learn new skills, right? To train your brain differently. So I love that. Okay, second part of that question. I'll just start again. So now that we know what neuroplasticity is, I'm assuming everyone knows what self-regulation is, but if you want to go into that, you can. So your session focuses on neuroplasticity and self-regulation. For leaders under constant pressure, what's one brain-based shift that makes the biggest difference in staying out of reactivity?
So understanding, I think again, we're going to go back to the beliefs a little bit, and I'm going to touch on just for a moment what you said about judgment. I'm going to go a little bit further that yes, your brain hears the judgment, and your brain actually takes it upon itself to accept that judgment to your body. And so not only does your brain accept that judgment, if you say that somebody else is, let's say X, Y, or Z, that person's X, Y, or Z, whatever that judgment is, your body hears that is the judgment towards itself. And as we judge another, then our body chemistry goes into that reactive mode because it feels that energy, that negative energy. And so our body becomes, it basically alchemizes to the negativity that you just tossed out, that you just accepted. Now, we're all going to have those thoughts. We're all going to have that initial judgment. We're all going to have it. It's what we do with it. Do we feed it? Do we add to it? Do we continue to feed on it? Or do we say, wow, that's an interesting thought. I wonder where that came from. And then we can start looking at the belief. And I know for myself, and I grew up in North Dakota where the body image was a big deal. My mother struggled with her weight her entire life. And I remember going for a bike ride And her comment when she saw someone that was larger than her was, looks like we can go have some chips and salsa. That was her way of saying, I'm not as big as her, so let's go have some chips and salsa, which was really just a negative remark about herself. And so to understand how those comments get to the root of the problem, which is her belief system, right? Her belief is that she was struggling, she was judging herself, and it came out in other areas. And so as a leader, to take that step back and willingly, non-judgmentally step back and see where my triggers as a leader are, where my judgment as a leader is. I remember having employees where I had, and I'm not proud of this, had basically said, you know what, they're just not going to work in this system. They're not going to work in this organization. And in my mind had sort of written them off as employees, not out of meanness. I didn't think, but the judgment was they're not going to work in this environment. So I stopped trying. So what are the belief systems that are impacting our employees? And if we as leaders have decided this person is not going to be successful in the role, then it's time to either change that, plant a new seed that they are going to learn, they can learn, that they're capable, that they are willing to learn, to have that one-on-one conversation, instead of letting that seed that this employee is not, let's say X, Y, or Z, whatever it is we've determined, we've planted a seed in our mind, and now we are looking for proof. As you said earlier, our brains are meaning-making machines, and we're now looking for proof that that employee is exactly what I judge them to be. And so as leaders, how many even non-present, unconscious thoughts and beliefs do we have about employees? Do we have the belief that employees are just lazy? I know a lot of leaders who have said that about their teams. Oh, they're all just lazy. Okay, as a leader, if you get to that point where you think an all or nothing, that your employees, all or most of them, or this whole team, then it's time as a leader to step out of a leadership role, because you are harming those people. You are actively looking, whether you realize it or not, for proof that that team, that program, that offering doesn't have value. And that's when people can feel that energy. People can feel that that is not a psychologically safe environment for them, because even if you don't say the words to them, people feel it. And that's the piece I believe as leaders we are forgetting, that we are not just in a relationship where you do a piece of paper, we coming back. We're emotional beings, and every single emotion impacts those around us and ourselves.
Yeah. I mean, energy is huge. And I love how you said people can feel it. Like if you do have these judgments about people, maybe, I mean, they might be doing everything right, but in your brain, you've already had this preconceived idea that they are a certain way. And the way that our brains work, you're going to look for evidence that way. So open-mindedness is really great, but it is, I know it's very challenging going in and helping leaders change. And when they say terms like, oh, my whole staff is, like lazy or whatever, leader, red alert, that's right. On you. Like that is on you. So it's hard work.
It's also hard work. And I want to say it's not just for leaders. It's also in relationship, because we know from positive psychology that, 6 months to a year after being rewarded with the most wonderful relationship, the most wonderful job, the most wonderful house, anything it is, 6 months to a year after we receive the best thing that ever happened to us, we will start to find fault with it. It's in our DNA to start looking for what. So even in our relationships with our significant others, I'm very careful, because when I go below the line, when I get into a negative space, I will find what's negative about everybody else around me if I am left to my own, because that's now the level of awareness I'm in. I'm in a level of awareness where I'm going to seek out everything else that's wrong because I'm in protective mode. So if I even allow myself to plant the seed that says, oh, man, I love that husband of mine, but damn, he's lazy, I will again spend the next many years of my life proving to myself that he's lazy. And every time it happens, if I'm not aware and if I'm not continually finding what's right in the relationship, I will start to find what's wrong. And when I start to look for what's wrong, I will become that negative vessel, finding everything else that's wrong in that relationship.
Yeah. Do you have any tips how to kind of stop that down spiral? I know I have things that I tell my humans, so I'm curious to hear yours. I know that the first step is acknowledging, that thought, that self-talk that you're having. Let's say that like husband is lazy. What would you say the next step after that would be to kind of shift that way of thinking?
Well, to me, actually, the first thought is getting myself into a state where I'm not in fear mode judging another person. When I'm in the forest, and the reason I love nature is I've never once gone in the forest and said, "Oh, that tree is so ugly. Why does it bend that way? Why is that flat? Why is that like even the sticks on the ground? There's a reason for it. There's a season for it, right? That tree has lived and has now died, and this beautiful root is here, and it is healing itself at any time. And so I believe that actually the first is, yes, we need an awareness that we can be either triggered or our best self. And when we're in presence, when we're calm, and I like to say it, when we're our best, when we show up our best, which for me, I'm energetic, I'm creative, and I'm kind. If I'm not one of those three things for some reason, then it's up to me to figure out my shit before I go lay it on someone else, before I go react to somebody else's ideas or processes. And so for me, when I feel triggered, when I feel that I'm in judgment to myself or someone else, it's because I have the belief that I'm only as good as my body can feel. Then I bring myself out to nature. Finding nature and understanding who I am at my best will then help me to identify when I start sliding into that reactive negative place. And as a leader, I've actually had conversations with high level physicians, some across the country. And at one point I had a conversation with one who literally described the department chair as abusive, because he would come in, he would yell and scream about what was or wasn't going right. He would leave and the next day not even remember it and bring everybody donuts, and not understand that when he came in lashed out, again, we're mind-making machines, we're meaning-making. He comes in, all these 10 people or 20 people are in, oh my gosh, what did I do to make that happen? And we start looking for the negative and we start making meaning of it. Maybe he just had a fight with his significant other this morning and we did nothing. But until we have some way of putting that back together and understanding that, and even if he lashes out and had nothing to do with you, do you really want to be in the firing line next time he comes in? Or are you going to start playing safe?
Yeah.
And that's the piece that I think we've been missing in our organizations. I think that leadership, many really well-intentioned people have been promoted because they were good at doing their job, but they don't understand the dynamics of human beings and humans in connection and flow with each other.
Yeah. Yeah. It makes sense. I have a very similar vein of thinking, but it makes sense why you have such a nature component. And I have a bunch of questions that we should stick to the session title, but I want to dive into the nature and your retreat center and all of that stuff, because I also like nature and plants and trees. And you're exactly right. Like I never go to the mountains and go for a hike and I'm like, yeah, look at that tree doing its tree thing, and even like a muddy trail or whatever it is, you're just so grateful and grounded and thankful. And it's a different, as humans, we're not meant to sit at a desk for 8 hours a day, sitting still with like impeded blood flow to our lower half and all of these. Technology is moving so fast and we are so connected to it and it's affecting us whether we realize it or not. And I think nature is such a huge, it's like the magic wand. like there is no magic wand, but I would say, and I'm sure you agree, like one of the fastest ways to get yourself regulated, to get yourself calm, out of stress, reduce your cortisol, all those things. You kind of answered this question. Let's see what my next question is. Okay. Nature is a huge part of your work. I know you just said getting into nature is a really good way to regulate yourself and find some clarity. But is there a way? What is the biggest benefit? And this is going to be open for you to promote your retreat center. And how can nature kind of help in a way that, like, the workspace, the corporate space, like, what's the magical thing about your retreat center that you can help with corporate stuff, with leaders, with performance, with all the stuff? But talk about your retreat center and how that helps.
Yeah. So I've been here for 21 years, 22 in April. And it started out and it was a place that even the realtor didn't want to show me. He was like, you don't want this place. It's like, you just don't want it. It's near the freeway. It's like it's overgrown. And so I said, well, can one of your associates show me the property? And he said, no, you don't want it. And so I drove up here, the gate was open. I came up, I knocked on the door, and I, built a relationship with the owners and made them an offer and found a real estate agent that would write up the contract and give me some money back for the improvements. So it worked out really well to be able to do that. And it just became this blank canvas for me. It was this huge building with no, it was an industrial building when I bought it. It had a car maintenance shop on the lower level. And it was never meant to be a retreat space. But in 2020, my dad died. I had back surgery. And I started walking the property when we got sent home for COVID. I didn't have physical therapy, so I just started walking the property. And as I walked it, I slipped a few times, and I decided to add some stairs so I could access more of the property. And since that time, I've now put in over 500 stairs. I've made trails that go all the way around the property. And I find that when especially high level, stressed out, successful people come, and I ask them to go on a silent hike, to put their phones in their pockets, to just take a walk and to see what they notice. That ends up being, even though I feel like I've got lots of wisdom to share, at the end of the day, so many of them say the best part of the day was for me to just be unplugged and to be in nature and to, just not talk to anyone. And I'm over and over again surprised by how therapeutic it is because of that. When we're in nature, there's nothing out there that's going to harm us. Not on the property at night. We'll see some bobcat and mountain lion on the camera, but they don't come near us. They don't come on the trails during the day, and we don't go down there at night. So we have this, just love for all the wildlife that's out there. And just being in there, feeling the breeze, feeling the calm, our bodies remember who we were meant to be. We were meant to live in harmony with the earth. My great-grandparents were farmers in Minnesota. They worked the land, they tilled the land. I still remember using their outhouse and the Sears Roebuck catalog as the toilet paper. We were meant to be outdoors, as you said, not sitting in chairs. And so I'm not saying that we need to stop working. What I am saying is that can we find a way to regulate ourselves more fully while we're in the office, taking those breaks, having conversations about our need as human beings to be in nature, to be regulated, because we've gotten ourselves overstimulated to the point we don't recognize what coherence feels like. And so a big part of my work is working with other people who have the tools that can help people bring themselves into coherence, because not everyone has 4.5 acres to go out and just go get lost in the woods between phone calls. But our bodies, and I know this from being an athlete, I'm sure you do too, when we close our eyes and we imagine that we're in the forest, when we hear some sounds, or if and I'm going to bring some bay leaves to art and science. So everyone in my session will get to smell the bay leaves of the forest. When we have a smell of something that's from nature and we relax into it, our bodies do not know that we're not in the forest. And so we can use these tools, and there's so many amazing tools, knowing that we can be the observer of the thoughts that create us suffering, and then starting to recognize how those thoughts change our body chemistry. That's the future of leadership, and to understand and accept responsibility for the flow or the disruption that we create as leaders.
Yeah. I love that. And you're using neuroscience to trick the brain with visualization. And yeah, your brain does not know the difference. They've done a lot of studies on athletes who are in recovery, and they actually have like attached, my brain is full of sinus stuff, so I can't remember the word, but the little things that they put on your muscle that analyzes muscular contraction. And they said they've done a lot of studies where looking at if the athlete is just visualizing their training, they're getting the same contractions in their muscles as if they were actually doing it with their muscles in real life. Like the brain is such a powerful, powerful tool that's plastic that can recreate those new wirings. So I think that's amazing. Yeah.
And we get to harness that as we get to understand it. This is what I believe is human evolution. We have, until 2009, when Norman Doidge wrote the book on our brains that showed the world that we can change them, we had believed that at 26, we sort of stopped maturing. And so we're in this incredible time period where we can take the wisdom of, the most wonderful writers that the world has ever known to start to understand the power of our brains. And neuroscience is here now to help us prove it. And so all of these tools that each of us have and that we're bringing to art and science are helping us to understand our brain. You're going to be hearing from Kyra Bobinette. Her and I have begun a friendship out here in California because we live very close to each other, but didn't even realize it. And so we're going to get so much information about our brains, about the new science of thriving. And I'm so excited that we're going to be able to have all these kind of conversations.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's very exciting. I think that if you have any interest in neuroscience, the brain, and performing optimally and at your best, you need to be at this conference. I wrote down when your session is going down. It's going down 11 a.m. on Wednesday, the 25th. And if you want to learn more, you definitely need to check it out. Your website, it's should be in the description, but can you let people know if they want to learn more about yourself or your retreat center? Where can they find you?
Yeah, we're livingwellusa.com. We have certainly that side of the business. And then we also rent it out for weddings and other events, which is just livingwelleventcenter.com. And we love doing all things that are about the science of the brain, including celebrations, including, bringing people together to cherish the moments in their lives where they're getting married, whether they're starting, new companies. We've had groups here that are launching new enterprises, and we just have a lot of fun finding the best part of living.
Awesome. I love that. And for those of you watching, if you're attending the conference, my session goes down at 2 p.m. on Thursday. It's called Unlocking Potential, Thriving with Neurodivergence in the Workplace. So come see me, come see Patty, say hi to us in real life if you are there, and keep staying tuned. Stay tuned to whichever channel you're watching this on, because now through March, all the way up into the conference, I'm going to be interviewing more speakers and give you guys a lot of information, and I can't wait. And Patty, I'm looking forward to seeing you in real life in a few months.
Thank you so much.
Okay, awesome.